Welcome to the Extraordinary Podcast, where we identify God's uncommon work in common life. Recognizing God's work requires intentionality, but articulating it motivates and inspires. Don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. In today's episode, I have a conversation with Dave Galbraith about his life and the journey that he's had. And through it, he sees how God provided for him and was preparing him for the next step or many steps later. So let's get into the conversation with Dave. Dave, thank you for joining us on the podcast here. We appreciate you taking time to share your story and what God has done in your life.
Thank you, Pastor.
As we begin, could you share a little bit about your life growing up, particularly life on the farm and rural settings?
In the rural settings at the time, when I was 8, 9 years old, I learned discipline first thing off because we had certain jobs to do as soon as we got back from school. We did those jobs first, then we did our homework. Later on, as I got older, we learned respect. Respect for the parents, respect for everyone that was around us. And my mom and dad always told us children to be seen and not heard. That was back when things were pretty... You didn't go out to town and eat out every night or something like that. Everything was home-cooked meal. We learned... we learned that farming was a livelihood. And if you didn't respect what you were doing or learn more of what the farm was about, you didn't make it. The farm didn't last very long in your life. But down the road, I never thought about it until I got older, but God was leading me down a path that I never saw until later on in life. It just was an eye-opening experience. Younger generation now, don't get me wrong, they have different stresses, different things to learn than what it was back in my time. Yes, and the stone wheel was just started in. So it was interesting. I would not change anything about it.
Now you had both farm ground, both crops and livestock, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you enjoy one over the other?
I enjoyed the farm ground farming more than the livestock because 9 times out of 10 the livestock were out more than they were in where they were supposed to be. And it always happened just before the fall of the season. You'd chase them hogs up and down them corn rows and you couldn't see them till you run over them. But yeah, it was a challenge, and it made us grow in strength and everything all the way around.
And the thing about livestock is you can never take a break.
No.
With crops, you have intense seasons, but when you're not in that intense season, you have some time to rest, recover, and
right.
maintain your equipment, that type of stuff. So,
right.
What kind of animals did you guys have?
We had hogs and cattle, and I can remember when my older brother and I got old enough that they thought we had enough responsibility, why they let us milk the cows by ourselves while they were in the field. And my older brother Stephen and I, we chased the cattle into the barn, set the milk and stuff up, and we didn't get as much milk out of the cows as Dad always did. Mm-hmm. So we thought, well, we'll cheat, we'll pour some water in with it. Now that didn't work. Dad caught that real quick because they had our own separator and everything where we take the cream off the top of it and stuff, and he didn't get as much out of us as he did. Yeah, we got a talking to that time.
But that kind of speaks to, if you don't take care of it, if you don't respect it, and don't do it right, your livelihood is at stake.
Exactly.
Now, after high school, you enlisted in the military. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Can you share with us the branch you served in and any place that you were stationed?
I joined the Marine Corps because during my senior year, they had the recruiter come over and he stepped out there on that basketball court with them dress blues on, and I just knew that was the branch I had to be in. And I thought, this is not going to be too bad, until after I signed my name on that dotted line and I stepped off that plane out in San Diego. That drill instructor puts you in his place real quick. And that's another place where you learn your discipline, because you have to rely on everyone around you to have your back, or your six as they called it. And if they don't respect you, you're not going to get the safety or the protection that you should have in a combat situation. The drill instructors only had 6 weeks to get us broke in to their mind stay, to where they knew that when we got into a combat situation that we could take care of ourselves. And it was tough. I respect them more now than I ever have before. Once I got over in Vietnam, I thought, 18 years old, 6 foot tall, bulletproof, hey. Then that first round cracks over your head and you watch the guy on your right or left drop. And it's not fun, but you get a real quick education.
And how long were you in Vietnam?
I was in there for 13 months, 67 to 69. Anywhere from the DMZ down to Da Nang. I mean, all over. I never had a certain landing spot to stay in.
But your service time was extremely intense.
Oh, yes.
From boot camp to being in a combat zone to, and you served for 2 years, I believe?
Yes, sir.
And so it's, again, thank you for your service, but I want to make sure we don't gloss over the fact of you had some intense moments with that. So.
Yes, and if it hadn't been for the prayers from everybody at home and God having a plan for me to make it back, to talk to somebody that might be in a bad situation, he would have probably let me expire over there. But God had a reason to protect me and bring me home. I've got a loving wife. She is praying for me nonstop. I know she is. My mom, her mom, sister-in-laws. I mean, it's just, if you don't have the well-rounded group of people praying for you, you're not going to get a good foothold or a good solid foundation to stand on. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And you referenced your wife, Nancy,
yes.
and her prayers. You were engaged while you were overseas, correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain how you and Nancy met?
I was the class clown. And I was out doing PE, and I saw her and her friend on the bleachers. I thought, boy, she's cute. And I thought, well, I'm going to just kind of goof off a little bit, and see if I can get her attention. At the time, they had what they call a rope, where you rope climb. You've probably done it in high school. You get to the top, and you slap the top of it, and slide back down. And I got about a third of the way down, and I lost my grip. Boy, and I hit the floor with a bang. And I looked up. She was talking to her friend, never even noticed me. And I thought, oh, boy, what am I going to do to get her attention? So the next day, I just walked up to her, hi. And she kind of looked at me like, oh, yeah, okay. But then as we started getting classes together, I would sit clear in the back and goof off. And, of course, the teacher would reprimand me, and she'd just kind of drop her head. Yeah. And I think she felt sorry for me. That's why she stuck around me.
So, well, that's great. So, high school sweethearts.
Yes,
and I believe, where was your first date? I think you shared with us.
Yeah, our first date, I thought, boy, I'm going to really be impressive, because I had just spent $220 on a 57 Chevy. I had it all decked out and everything. I'm going to take her out for supper, nice meal and everything. We ended up at McDonald's. I walked at 15 cents for a hamburger or something like that. You didn't sit inside, you sat in your car. And I thought, really, this is something. But you could go out then and have a hamburger and a meal and a movie and everything else and still fill your car with gas and still have money left over. I don't know whether I'm impressed her or not, but I told her 53 years ago she could have said no, but she didn't.
That's great. It's fun to reminisce about how you met and the start of the relationship. Yes. After your service, you became a diesel mechanic.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us how you got involved with that?
Sure can. My mom's dad, Homer, he bought a brand new tractor. I didn't embellish on this before, but he didn't like the way hydraulics worked on it. I mean, this tractor didn't even have 80 hours on it. We split this tractor in half. He reworked the pump and everything else on it, put all the hydraulic, and we put it back together. And that's when I was hooked, because I knew just exactly that once you tear it down, if you can improve on it or revamp it somehow and make it better, yeah, that was the way to go. So every time Dad had something that needed worked on, I dove into it head first and just absolutely loved it. And it was a talent that God gave me that I never really dwelled on until after I got a little bit longer in age and we had our first child, Kim. And then I thought, God's really blessed me with something that I need to work on. And all of the mechanics and everything just fell into place from there on out. It was very, very rewarding knowing that he had blessed with something like that.
And you worked as a diesel mechanic for about 40 years.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to me what's different about a diesel mechanic versus just a regular mechanic?
They're basically the same, but you get into a diesel engine and the tolerances are so tight that if the fuel's not itemized just right in the compression chamber, things can go wrong real quick. Because the fuel is what helps cool that cylinder. Now on a gas engine, it fires hotter, so you got to have more coolant circulation around that cylinder. With the cooling of the coolant plus the itemized diesel fuel, it keeps that a lot cooler, a lot faster, they last a lot longer. But they put out twice as much horsepower. The torque on some of them are just phenomenal. I loved working on the diesel engines because it wasn't as complex, but it was something that led me into what I ended up with in the long term.
Now, you said diesel engines will last longer
Yes.
because of they're cooler. The engine is cooler. They don't have the sparks to actually create the combustion.
Correct.
It's pressure that creates the combustion.
Yes, sir.
But that pressure makes it more precise.
Yes,
you
it
have to be
does.
more precise in the mechanics of it. Do you have stories of how things weren't as precise as they needed to be?
Oh, yeah, there's quite a few of them. In fact, there was a gentleman that pulled into the shop out at Center State, and he says, just doesn't sound right. So we thought, we'll listen to it, and you could hear it popping back through the intake. And I thought, wait a minute, something's wrong. So we popped the hood open, and there was a big hole in the side of the block. It broke the connecting rod off just flush with the crankshaft, knocked the hole in the side of the block, but it still kept running because it didn't hit any of the main oil galleys, and it was popping back through that one cylinder so bad. I mean, and one gentleman had taken 3 transmissions to make one. Had everything timed just perfect. He left one idler gear out of it. When he got into the high side and shifted her up, it just exploded all over the driveway. And so we drug it back in, tore her all apart, put her back together the right way. So timing and tolerances are just perfect. God is the same way. His timing and his tolerances are just spot on every time. And you don't realize that until you get into certain situations.
I think that's a really, really cool analogy, how you bring that back to God of just his precision in our life. There's a saying, God's never late.
That's right.
He's not early, which can sometimes bother us, but he's never late. And so that's a thank you for sharing that. That's it's a great observation. And as I think about the kind of 3 main things we talked about, the farming, the military, and your work as a diesel mechanic, we see how precision is important with all of those things.
Yes.
But it's also important to have community around us.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
With the farm, you can try to do it on your own. I'm sure there are people that have been successful, but it's hard to do it on your own. It's hard to do it with other people, but it's isolating on your own. With military, if you don't rely on those around you, you're not going to be successful.
No.
And that's a very nice way to put it, right? With diesel mechanics, we see the precision there. So can you speak to the importance of having people around you?
Oh, yes. The Sunday school class, for instance, we got some prayer warriors in there that are just outstanding. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy coming on Sunday. We need more people in Sunday school classes because without everyone being grounded and everyone praying for everyone else, it, like you said, it's a struggle by yourself. It really is. Mm-hmm. But with all of the prayer warriors and everything else, it's so much easier. With our situation with our cancers, my youngest daughter having cancer now, and the prayers that are going up for her and us, it takes the weight off our shoulders. We don't have to rely on just ourselves to do it. And we know that God's in it in everything that we do.
You alluded just a moment ago about some health situations that you've encountered. Can you expand on your journey with cancer, I guess?
Yeah, it was one of the deals where I didn't want to hear the word cancer, but I knew that I had to have it taken care of. It started in 2012, 7.5 hours of surgery, 56 lymph nodes out robotically. Then the wife found out she had cancer. Our thoughts kind of went way off track. And then we thought, well, it's like Judy Mosier said in our Sunday school class, why not me? And we started expounding on that and thinking, well, God is going to take care of us no matter what. And He has. He has really blessed us in so many ways. If the VA wasn't taking care of all of my medicines and stuff, I don't think I would be here today. And God has blessed every facet of what's been going on in this.
You started our conversation off by talking how God was taking care of you when you were young and on the farm, and He had a plan for you. And not that I think you would want anybody to experience war, but it's a reality in our world.
Yes.
But because you went through that, God has been able to provide for you in different ways through the VA, and that's just one example of how God was working in your life, preparing you for what was to come. And you're undergoing treatment now,
Yes.
And that's never fun.
No, it's not.
But one of the things that inspires me about you is you have this contagious attitude. Not a Pollyanna attitude of unrealistic goodness, but it may not be what I want it to be, but I don't have to let that get me down. How do you maintain that attitude?
Well, prayer for biggest thing, because if I didn't pray every morning and every night and whenever the Spirit led me, I don't know where I would be, because God is my foundation in everything. He has given everything that we need, not what we want. And He has sustained us in all of this, period. I mean, I laugh about it. I mean, I know when I go, I'm going to be there with Him. Mm-hmm. It is going to be fun. It's going to be enjoyable. I'm going to beat a lot of people to get there, but it's going to be a tough road. But why not? Yeah. Enjoy it while you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great perspective. I think we can get so bogged down by what we're going through that it can hurt our quality of life even more so.
Exactly.
Can kind of compound itself a little bit. But there are, to be honest, there are some things that cancer has prevented you from being able to do. Like, you're no longer on our softball team, and we miss you.
I miss it.
Yeah. And maybe the rowdiness is what I miss. I don't know. But
No.
So are there other things? Are there things that you just can't enjoy like you used to, or aren't able to do?
Right. I used to love to ride bicycle. I mean, I had a little 3-mile route that I rode in under 18 minutes. I rode RAGBRAI 2 years in a row, 85 and 86 across Iowa. I miss the bicycle, but I just can't get on it anymore because I've lost all the muscle tone and everything. My stamina's not there anymore. I miss playing with you guys on the team. I mean, you're so good at shortstop and second base. I mean, I love to watch your reaction and stuff. And I used to think, gosh, I used to be that fast. Now all I can do is think about being that fast. But I miss the camaraderie with all of the guys out on the team and stuff. Praying before the game starts and after the game is finished. And all of the needling and ribbing and everything that we used to do in between times. It was a lot of fun. I just wish I could do more, but God has given me the spirit and the blessing to do what I can. And if it uplifts somebody, or I can uplift anybody or help them, I'm in it for the long haul.
I think that, again, speaks to how you say God's working in my life. Well, things aren't ideal, but he's still working. And if we remember that as a core truth in our life, then that can help us with what we're going through now. Because no matter who you are, as you go through life, you have different abilities, different responsibilities. I mean, you talk about how you said I'm quick.
Yes, you are.
When I was in my late 20s, my wife reminded me that I'm not as quick as I once was, and I'm several years removed from that. So I know a fielding a ground ball to one side or the other, sometimes my mind thinks I should be able to get there, but my legs aren't as quick anymore. But it's a humbling experience to recognize that maybe we're not what we used to be.
Right.
But God's not done with us.
That's right. Absolutely. Like my cousin Jerry Valentine always says, the older I get, the better I was. and he is so true on right there that it's just unreal. But yeah, I mean, we don't react as quick as we used to, but God still knows our heart, and he knows just exactly what reactions that we can handle at a certain age. He doesn't dump everything on us all at one time.
Well, that's great. I appreciate your story and your willingness to share how God has used you, how God has worked in your life. Is there anything else you would like to share today? No,
I think I've pretty much bored everybody beyond tears about now. They're probably going, cut it off. Come on, it's done.
No, this has been great. And like I said, your attitude is such an inspiration to me. Because I look at you and I say, this guy could be annoyed or frustrated, but he said, I'm going to give life everything I've got, and I'm going to serve Jesus in the process.
Amen to that.
So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your inspiration, and just thank you for how you reflect Jesus in your life.
Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate it, and you are definitely an inspiration to me.
Well, praise the Lord. Thank you for being a guest on our podcast today. We appreciate it.
You're sure welcome.
Thank you for joining us for this podcast. Be on the lookout for how God does uncommon work in common life. And please subscribe to never miss an episode.